Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're revisiting my workflow for creating realistic looking fantasy maps using Gaea 2. The recent release of Gaea 2.1 has been a huge game changer, improved stability and some exciting new features that I can't wait to show you. I know my original tutorials got a bit complicated, so this time I've challenged myself. Can we create equally stunning fantasy maps? Complete with multiple biomes, custom mountain ranges, and realistic rivers entirely within Gaea, without touching Photoshop at all. To help you follow along easily, I've actually provided the project file for free on my Discord server, linked in the description below. Discord also makes it much easier for me to directly support you rather than in the YouTube comments, as I've been doing before. But please do still drop a like and leave a supportive comment anyway on the YouTube video. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Finally, I'd really love it if you could also just share your finished maps on Discord. Seeing your creations is honestly one of my biggest motivations for making these tutorials. So yeah, that would be really nice. So first of all, grab that file, open it up. And let's jump in and start looking at the this workflow. So my reason for wanting to start off at the very end of this workflow, not only to just show off the final result here, but I think it's important to kind of understand what this workflow is trying to achieve. So if you start off by clicking on the light X box, I would definitely recommend reducing the preview to 1K for this step. Push F to lock this as the preview. That means that if we make changes elsewhere in the workflow, we'll always see the output of this node reflected on screen. So we're going to go to tab 1 and look for the node called Draw Rainfall. This feeds into the rivers node. Now, this already has some input in there, so I'm going to click this X to clear the input. And then I'm just going to click in the corner so that there's something in the sea, a bit of rainfall out to sea to start off with. And as you can imagine, with a name like Draw Rainfall, what we're going to do here is paint along the kind of areas where we think there should be rainfall. This is what I'm not really an expert in this sort of part of the map making process, but my go-to is if we've got kind of like a mountain range. If we say that the wet weather is coming from the west here, that the rain will predominantly fall on one side of the mountain. So let's start off with that. So the height is going to determine how much rain, and then just like Photoshop and things like that, we've got the brush size and then the hardness. So maybe we'll turn the hardness of the brush down. And I'm just going to paint along this side of the mountain. This little kind of lightning bolt symbol here, if we switch that off, you can kind of click and then almost in real time have the kind of the rivers and the biomes update. And in fact, here you can see by clicking here, it's actually the other side of the mountains, and you can see how this is formed a river going to the other side. You'll also notice that as the rivers appear, there's more kind of green around the river. I guess like a real famous example of this, if you go onto Google Earth, is looking at the Nile. Perhaps you see kind of very little vegetation for the majority of the view, but then alongside the banks of the Nile, it's very green and very lush. So I've set this up to do this. It's a bit laggy to try and do this updating in real time. So I'm going to switch this back on. And now here you can see kind of the ability to just paint there. And then perhaps we'll say, I'll go to a lower height, but we'll say slightly less rainfall on the other side of the mountain. And actually, let's not forget these islands down here. And perhaps showing a bit of northern hemisphere bias here, but I'll say at the very north of the map, we're going to just see some more rainfall there, so that's going to be a bit more lush and green. And that's pretty much it for being able to kind of influence on a very basic level, kind of where the rivers are, where the lakes form, where the biomes. I've tried to kind of set this up in a way where you can essentially just draw on the map and it will update. There's obviously a lot more to it in terms of like settings to tweak and things like that, but in terms of getting yourself to a good start, then this can be quite helpful. But maybe you don't want your map to be this shape. I think even though this was completely procedurally generated, this landmass, people saying like, oh, it looks like Florida, or it looks like this, it looks like that. But perhaps you want something different. So in order to do that, we shall now go back to, now that we've had this little demonstration, we'll sort of go from start to finish. First thing we need to do though is turn off the lock preview. So first of all, I've just used an island node to kind of create this initial shape. You can do this in one of two ways. So you can just change around the random seed to get something. Or we can actually use the draw node. This is useful, especially if you want multiple islands. So why don't we try that? So first we're going to want to click on the islands node and hit F to lock the preview. And then we're going to drag out from draw into the island, and then the island will disappear, but that's because we've not drawn anything yet. So click back on the draw node and open Painter. And yeah, just create some kind of rough shapes. In fact, this is quite a good time to kind of switch off the lightning bolt, and you can see things appearing in real time. Whew, okay. Yeah, it's perhaps not the most intuitive thing. I think basically, obviously, you are drawing on the draw node. The island node is then interpreting that drawn input, and then using that to create these islands. But yeah, it's something that looks quite interesting. So let's go ahead with that. Spend some time getting the result that you want. I guess importantly, you can follow the previous workflow in my older videos, where we use Photoshop to kind of create that landmass if you have an existing map that you want to follow. But let's start with this for now. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to click on the island and press F again to unlock that. I'm just going to talk through the general workflow. So the next step is just to apply a slight blur. This is just to make the coastlines not a kind of perfect vertical cliff. This feeds into some Perlin noise. This is really just set to billowy to give just the land some texture when we do the erosion later. This then gets combined with another draw node. And this time, this is to draw the mountains. So just as before, we're going to click on this combine node after the draw mountains, hit F, and then I'm going to open the painter. And you can see here I've got from my sort of mountain ridge from the previous map. So we're just going to clear that. And again, think of what it is that you want from your from your landmass, kind of what makes sense for the mountain. So I'm just going to, for me, follow this coastline. So we need to set the height to kind of like a midpoint. I'm just going to sort of follow that coast like that. Maybe I'll also go along here. You can then maybe play around with the height a bit. Perhaps we'll have some regions that are just a little bit higher, and then perhaps some regions that are a little bit lower. Hopefully this kind of comes up on the video. But we're essentially just creating these like slightly elevated areas where we want the mountains to form. So once we've done that, we're going to close that, unlock this combine node, and then we have a combine node with just some like a ridge input. So this is again very subtle here, but this is just to kind of add a little bit more interest for the oceans later. And now this step can have quite a dramatic effect, and you may want to bypass this if you're looking to sort of faithfully recreate an existing map. But I find that this warp step can really help get a little extra realism in your map. What this is essentially doing, as you can see, is it's warping the map, and doing so in such a way to kind of, I guess, sort of emulate the sort of tectonic collisions, and it kind of just distorts the mountain ranges in quite a nice way to make them look a little less hand-drawn. If we then go into the next combine node, you can now see where the sort of the Voronoi noise texture is added to those elevated areas. If it's too much or too little, you want to click on this height node and just change kind of what you're seeing here in white. So perhaps we want fewer mountains, or perhaps we want the tallest parts of where we drew these peaks to have kind of more influence from the mountains, and then some influence elsewhere. Let's see what that looks like. Pretty similar, but okay, this looks good. So play around until you get something that you like. This is all just kind of creating the general shapes that's then going to feed into the fractal terraces and the erosion. So let's take a look at the fractal terraces. I've just added in here, so we're visualizing the flow here, but this is just kind of like, I don't know, in my mind, kind of replacing perhaps some of those like old riverbeds that may get carved in canyons and things like that aren't necessarily rivers today. So kind of, again, just different ways of adding more interest and texture to the map before we head into the erosion step. And again, you can play around with what works for the scale of your map. But once you're happy with that, we then have our next drawing step, which is to draw the rainfall. I now realize that I've put my mountains absolutely right on the coast. So I might actually just go back and fix that quickly. Let's open this up again. We are going to repin this. Open the painter. And so if you take the height down to 0, then this kind of like erases what you had before. Again, it might not be the most clear on the video, but let's go with that. So I'm just creating a little bit more space there. Create a little bit more height here. Okay, let's see what this looks like. You can see why I suggest just working in 1K for this, just speed up the whole process. And don't forget to unlock your preview if nothing updates. Okay, well, let's say that's good enough. So now we're back to kind of painting the water, adding kind of like where the rain is going to fall, the headwaters for the rivers. So if you're kind of working from the file that I've uploaded on Discord, I would now, as we did at the start, kind of skip ahead to the end of graph 2, pin this. And this is already looking quite nice, but let's open up the painter here. And again, we're going to click X to kind of clear everything we've done before. This causes everything to disappear. So I usually just click in the corner, and that will at least bring up the kind of the dry terrain, like biome. And then, yeah, we can then paint in where the rainfall's going to be. I think here, actually, maybe what we'll do, let's put the height right to the max, and perhaps this is going to be, again, unrealistic, but let's just see if it looks cool. So we can maybe just paint this, and that's so cool, isn't it? Just look at those rivers forming. It's like, yeah, I feel like some omnipotent being right now. Yeah, let's make this perhaps these rather green mountains on this side. You can see this will make some changes. This is actually distorting the landscape underneath. Those rivers really are carving into the landscape as well. Sometimes you'll see the coast changing. But yeah, let's say we will now kind of move this to slightly lower. So we're just going to get a bit more rainfall, but not quite as much as before. There we go. And I guess we've got more, it's more dry on this side. This feels the wrong way round. It probably should be wet on the other side as you're having weather coming in from the ocean, but you know, it's a fantasy land. We'll have a bit more water up here to the kind of north. Yeah, play around, have a think. I mean, really, what I'm trying to do here is actually just kind of demonstrate this process of kind of deciding where the rainfall is going to be, and the fact that, you know, the Gaea will then just in real time calculate the rivers, and I've used the river information to kind of change the colors of the biome and things like that. So let's just stay with this for now, and let's progress to the next step. So the next thing is to check your sea level. So perhaps, you know, you've made some changes and you're seeing way too much is underwater or not enough. You know, there's not enough sea. So it's worth kind of going back and changing the sea level, kind of changing, getting something that you like the look of. We've got the lakes as well. So I've used a portal here. So right click, manage portals. And then on the precipitation, I've just used this rainfall. So you have to right click here, manage portals, and then set that out as a portal as well. But it makes sense that we should use the rainfall to drive where the lakes are placed as well. There's various masks here. So we've got the kind of the, let me stop this. So we've got a mask here for all the various lakes that have been found, detected. We've got the rivers, the sea, and then we've got like a combined rivers and lakes. And this is what's being used later on to drive the biome differences in the texture tab. The final thing that's going on here, we have a kind of combined node taking the various different water masks to feed into the water input of the cartography tab. Apologies if I'm going quite quickly through this, but I think given that you can kind of look into the file, it's just a bit. We'll try and keep this make this a quicker video. But yeah, if we look into this cartography tab, this is pretty cool. Honestly, this feels like getting 2 maps for the price of 1. You literally just need to plug in the height and then where the water is, and it will create this, which is pretty cool looking, even at 1K. Like all of the coloring is done automatically. There's various different options you can pick from to change the style. You want to go for Black Sea, or I guess there's fertile green here. Different styles, different color palettes. You can also directly drive the land color with an input. I guess we can try that now, to be honest. Why not? Okay, I'll save you a minute of your life. I couldn't get that to work at all for some reason. But okay, let's move on to the texturing side of this workflow. So this bit's actually quite. I guess the workflow itself is a little complicated, but there's not really that much for you to do at this point if you're kind of using the save file. So obviously we have the texture base that's calculated off of the 3D terrain, as well as the flow map. And really the main things that you'll need to change are what saturation map you want to use for your dry terrain, which one you want to use for your kind of like kind of wetter regions, and then what do you want to use for your kind of rock where there's like high slope areas. This, I guess, kind of like once you're a bit used to how this workflow works, then absolutely please modify this, add multiple biomes and add your snow and things like that. But I thought for now I'd just keep it simple with a dry, a wet, and a rock. And so I can just quickly take us through what we're doing here. We're essentially looking to mix this and this in a sensible and meaningful way. And so obviously where we've previously painted on the rainfall, we can use both, I guess, kind of where we imagine the rain to fall, and then also the proximity to the lakes and the rivers. So in order to do that, again, using portals, I've got here this mask, which I called in the previous stage the freshwater mask. This is just the river's output and the lake's output. I wanted to kind of not just have these like perfect lines, which are going to get covered up by the water anyway, which is what these masks currently are. So we need to just do a little bit of processing. So first of all, I use the aperture, and then a warp, just to kind of like smudge around. Again, just looking at examples on Google Earth, you don't necessarily always have this kind of sort of smooth transition from green to sandy color. Sometimes, the plants are here and then they're not there. So yeah, I think this kind of gives a more realistic effect. But then also we do want a little bit of that blur in as well. So just to get the best of both worlds, kind of combined these into something that looks like that. So this is just part of that mask that's going to drive kind of which sat map is coming through where. We also obviously kind of drew directly where we expected rainfall. So this is another important thing. So I'll change this to a height field so we can, a mask so we can see this. So you can see this is what we drew with the draw node, just very kind of smudgy, blurry regions. But one of the things I find, again, if you have that perfect, just kind of like blur, it looks really unrealistic. So this is why I like to use the variable blur node, where the blur is driven by the flow output, and that kind of helps create that feeling that the mixture between green and sandy color is driven from water kind of washing down. So we combine these two. You can use the shaper to kind of influence how they mix together, but then this is the final output of mixing those two. Next up, we've got the rock. So again, you would maybe want to change the rock to make it fit your world that you're building. And then the other thing to change is the slope. So how much of that rock do you want to see kind of coming through? Do you want it to be something that's fairly dominant? In which case you want to see more white here. And we'll see kind of it coming through more on the map. Let's go even more extreme. Or do you want to see less of it, in which case you kind of take it take it back here. Optionally, we've got this color erosion node. So this essentially takes the height information and kind of erodes the color. So you like kind of uses rain to mix these colors up a little bit. It's up to you whether you want to use it or not. So if you don't want to include it, you can just press B to bypass it. It kind of like just takes away some of the details and it kind of like mixes the colors. It's quite nice. It does add like a level of realism, but also sometimes I quite like the look of sort of the very specific kind of flow patterns and things like that, and this can disrupt that. The next and final thing you might want to change is the watercolor node. This is a fairly new node, actually. It's quite nice. It essentially, you provide it the height input, and then also a water mask, so show where the water areas are, and then it will kind of give you this feeling of depth. So you change your color for shallow or deep, and then you can play around with the settings to get what you want, to kind of show the shallow and deep areas. I've actually gone for like quite a green color for this. Not sure why, just kind of liked how it looked. But then, yeah, so we have the output of that. We just need to combine the water with the land color. And then we have this kind of nice output here. And again, this final step of using this LightX node, you can really see it makes it pop nicely. I've changed the elevation down so it's kind of below 5 degrees. So we have that sort of golden hour kind of look to it. And as I say, even in the free version, you should be able to kind of preview this at 4K. So once you've made all of your changes and you want to sort of see it in that kind of crispy 4K detail, switch it up to 4K and let your GPU whir away for a moment. And there we go. Now we have something that looks like this. There's probably a few things that I'm not so pleased with this. There's quite a few too many lakes and things like that. But yeah, I'd probably, if I wasn't doing this in real time, want to go through and tweak some stuff. But in terms of a result from not too much effort, just kind of drawing some rough shapes and having a bit of an idea of where you want your rainfall and allowing Gaea to just figure everything else out for you. I think I'm pretty pleased with something like this. I think this looks pretty cool. So yeah, if you like what you see in terms of the output, and you think that the method is not too difficult to follow along, then yeah, drop me a like, leave a comment just to say that you like it, and come along to the Discord channel and start posting some artwork. As I say, it really makes me happy to see people using my tutorials and getting enjoyment from it. So yeah, really hope to see you there soon. Yeah, reach out to me in the Discord channel if there's anything you need any help with. As I say, I rushed through this, but mostly just because I know that there's actually only a few areas that you'll need to kind of pay attention to in order to get a result like this. Yeah, I will see you in the next one.